Welcome to Small Town Times. My guest today again is Dave Mendicino. Thank you for coming, Dave.
My pleasure. This is getting to be a habit.
Yeah, well, you know what? Maybe we should create a podcast where it's like between two Daves.
Oh,
yeah.
And bring in some, I'm sure we could get some interesting guests to come in.
Yeah, we'll put them right there and put them in the hot seat there and have a good time.
That might be fun.
Let me think. I wonder who would like to do that. Who would like to debate two Daves?
Oh, I'm sure there would be a few.
Yeah, I think so. In the news last week, we realized that the tender for the community center at the Omichelle hasn't even been let yet. Do you have any insight on that?
Well, so council approved middle of February that they were good with the design and they wanted staff to take the project to tender. As you can well imagine, the tender documents, to put together tender documents for a project of that magnitude, especially when it's a net zero, one of those types of projects, it's very labor intensive. Hours and hours and hours and hours of work are involved in putting those tender documents together. It is quite a process. My experience has been staff will not go through that process until council gives them the go-ahead to, yes, we want to do this project. So up until the middle of February, there was doubt whether council was even going to go ahead with the design. The location was in, they were looking at all of that. They were getting up to speed with the project, the new council, as they should. But until council actually gave the go-ahead that, yes, we're going to go with this, they weren't really going to start on any tender documents until they got the go-ahead. It would just, for the amount of work that's involved in it, it would be a waste of time if council never really gave the approval to go ahead.
Now, was that clear when they were discussing it in December? Because I know it came to council in December, and that's when they decided to wait a bit. Did that come up that it was like, hey, it might be 2 months before we can even get the documents together? So
I don't remember them actually stating that. I don't even know if the question was asked. I do know that around December, yes, they put a pause on it. They could have approved it then, but again, it was a new council. There was a lot of information that they needed to be brought up to speed with, and that happened. But I don't even think it was mentioned at the time. I don't remember hearing it. And sometimes, sometimes at City Hall, it's just we could do a better job sometimes of communicating. That's an important fact that, especially with this project, with the magnitude of it and the amount of detail that has to go in, especially doing this kind of project, a net zero project, it was very labor intensive. And I don't remember any councillor asking about that process. And I really don't remember staff even mentioning it, that, yeah, now February, you've given the approval to go ahead. It's now going to take us X amount of time to prepare the tender documents. So the process is the same. The process is the way I've experienced the process in the past. It's taken longer with the type of project it is, and I don't believe that was communicated at the time.
So you haven't heard about any hiccups or any reasons or failures to meet the net zero or anything getting in the way? It's just a matter of the paperwork.
There's no hiccups. My understanding is they are about ready to send it out to tender, and the $26 million is there. They've established that, and they are, within the next week or so, I think that project will be going to tender.
All right. Well, I guess we'll see next week or so.
We'll see, and fingers crossed that it comes in.
How long do we normally wait for the tender process to get to the point where you can see some numbers?
I mean, usually about a month, but again, because of the complexity of the project, it might take a little longer. But hopefully by the end of May, there's something there. They're going to need to. once they send it out and they get it back, they're going to need to move fast because time's a wasting.
Interesting. So maybe next decade.
Oh, come on now.
Well, it's been a decade.
Well, it's been a decade. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for some of us that have been involved in that throughout that whole decade in this project, let's get it going. And once that happens, hopefully it does, this council can then focus on, what to do with Double Rink. As we've seen, this isn't something that's done overnight or within a few years. It takes almost a decade.
That reminds me of the West Ferris stuff and the Tweedsmuir and whatnot and the West Ferris Arena. And I went to a meeting with a new group in West Ferris, the Business Owners and Managers Association kind of thing, trying to put West Ferris back on the map. And maybe you would make a good honorary ambassador, seeing that you're living in East Ferris.
Part of the name's the same, right?
Yeah,
Ferris?
Ferris is Ferris.
Yeah, Ferris is Ferris.
Yeah. In fact, they were one thing before they were split up, and I think it was in like 1912, something like that.
Okay.
Something like that. Anyways.
So this new this group from West Ferris, are they saying anything about what to do, how to repurpose that site? The West Ferris Arena site? Is that on their radar at all?
It's one of the topics I put on the table to consider as one of the first projects, maybe. That may be. When there's a couple other things we're, throwing around. I don't want to let them all out of the bag, but it's interesting to see that energy of that community pulling together. And trying to do something that, there's a lot of talk about downtown, the waterfront all the time. McEwen's got a lot of city process, money, investment, and West Ferris kind of feeling like the poor second cousin, right? So, it's good that the community can get together and maybe change that.
Well, I mean, I've heard those concerns and those comments for all my time around council, and it's something that the council of the day needs to be aware of and be cognizant of what's going on down there. So I'm really anxious to see what the plans eventually end up being for the West Ferris site. I mean, once that arena comes down, there's a lot of nice chunk of land there to maybe add on to the pickleball and tennis courts and the soccer fields for kids. And
maybe we'll make you committee chair.
Oh yeah, no, I'm staying away from committees right now. Yes, I need a break from committees right now.
Speaking of breaks, Cassellholme has got some steel up.
Finally, I saw that. It's nice to see some steel finally coming up out of the ground. My first impression was, man, it looks out of place because you got this new steel and then you still got all the buildings around it. But such as the challenges of working on an existing site. I was talking to a family member of someone that's a resident there, and the question was, Dave, is this the way it's going to be with the construction for the next 4 or 5 years? And I just nodded my head and smirked a little bit, and oh my God, when you look at the average stay of a resident at Cassellholme, I mean, reality is it's not very long. 2 years. That
construction project's a lifetime for them.
Yeah, well, they will be. The individuals that are there now will be in a construction zone for all their time there.
Well, not that we're trying to beat a dead horse here, but you were involved with Cassellholme back when they were looking for other sites, and this is a topic that was discussed before they put the tender out. Is that maybe there was a better place in town for that, but I guess the cows and the horses are already out of the barn.
Well, they're certainly out of the barn, but the message from the municipalities, all of them, the 9 of them, right from day one. I'm going back to to 2012 and 2014, where they made it very, very clear that they could not afford the build, and that was when it was at $60 million. And we were looking for other options back then. When I was on the board of Cassellholme back in 2014, we actually had a memorandum of understanding that we put in place between Cassellholme, Canada College, the hospital, and the city to look for another site and look for something that all parties could participate in, and that would have allowed the other 8 municipalities to back out. If that arrangement had gone through, but the new board of, when I say the new board, the board of Cassellholme from 2014 to 2018 decided to go the route we're in now, and we've seen the animosity that created with the municipalities. It certainly didn't need to be done that way. You're trying to get 9 municipalities to sign on for an enormous amount of debt, and you're not treating them very well. I mean, that didn't sit well, as I've said before, with a lot of municipal politicians within those 9 municipalities, if not all of them.
Now, I remember we talked before about Castle Arms and the view that that's needed to be among the municipal assets if North Bay takes that over as the right. Has there been any progress towards that, or have you heard anything? Or
I haven't heard anything other than I do believe the municipalities are now, over the last few months, have started to realize that the assets of Castle Arms were the control of the assets of Castle Arms were taken away from them back in the fall of 2021 without anybody's knowledge. I believe I've said it before, and I believe that there's some discussions in the works to possibly back that decision off and see if the municipalities can get control of them again. That needs to happen. I mean, these assets, we're talking about $25-30 million in assets that the municipalities lost control of. And, when you're in a situation where construction costs, you don't know where they're going to end up. It's sure looking right now that it's going to go over $121 million. Plus the added, what they've realized with the added interest costs of $35 million over 25 years. I still can't fathom how they made that kind of, mistake, if you will. Was it a mistake, or was it the province had a lower rate offered after the fact to other homes that are built after a certain date? Like, So I just want to be clear. Was it a mistake, or it was just that the province is offering something better? So 2 things. So they did write to the province and ask them for the $35 million under this program. Yeah. Which and basically backdate the program so that they qualify. Right. And I don't believe that's going to happen. I don't think the province can do that, but that's certainly not my decision. So that's part of it, but the other part of it is $35 million. We knew interest rates were going up. We certainly didn't know that they were going to go up to where they are now. But it's a $35 million. I just don't understand how they were able to make that kind of calculation, I guess, in terms of not realizing that maybe that to me that number should have been smaller. With the way the rates have gone with inflation, that number should have been smaller. But I don't know why it ended up being $35 million. That's a significant amount of money that the municipalities are going to have to come up with. And you talk about Castle Arms and the municipalities gaining control again of the financial assets that are Castle Arms, those 4 buildings. The municipalities may decide that, hey, we need to put these assets on the open market and sell them in order to cover some of these costs, these interest rate costs, in order to the potential overrun in the construction costs. I mean, you look at what Sienna did. Sienna, they own the. They were building on the old St. Joe's site. They were building
They announced they were going to at one time.
Well, they announced that they started construction. They hired a construction company, and they were there working. And they saw where things were going, particularly with the interest rates, and they canceled the project, or they terminated the contract with the construction company and put the project on hold. You don't terminate a contract like that with those amount of dollars with a construction company without paying a fairly hefty penalty. And they figured, and this is private business, they calculated that it was better to pay the penalty than to proceed with the contract, because they saw whether it be costs weren't in line or whether they saw where the interest rates were going.
So what's the danger, though, of selling what it should be a municipal asset? Apparently it's not, but it should be. But selling that to a private company instead of running it yourself. Not real big on privatization of. So how would that look?
I don't. You would put there as part of the sale. I mean, you need to keep those rents low because of the nature of the clientele in there. Mm-hmm. That would be part of the sale. I mean, you could certainly put that. We've done. Look at the building on 2nd Avenue, right at the corner of 2nd and 1st. That apartment building that was built there. Mm-hmm. That's privately owned. They entered into an agreement with the city and with DSAB at the time. To keep the rents low, and that agreement's still in place as far as I know. You could build a sale where you could put some of those provisions in the agreement. Whether they go that route or not, that's just off the top of my head about selling it. But one way or another, I mean, if they don't come up with the $35 million. It's on the taxpayer, and really the taxpayer is paying enough for Cassellholme right now.
Well, even if it's not sold, at least you have the asset on your books that you can borrow to pay the interest on the other.
At least you've got options, which you don't have right now because that control of Castle Arms has been taken away. And when we say that they don't qualify for this program to get the $35 million. Really, when you look at what the province has done for Cassellholme right now and what our MPP has done to date, they've come to the table more than once, more than twice. To get that guarantee off the table for the municipalities, that was huge. And the amount of work that was done there, not just by some of us and the mayors and certainly our MPP to make that happen. You can only go to the well so much.
Yeah, well, I was trying to get Councillor Mark King in last week, and we couldn't get the date. But I will try to get him to explain several of these topics here. What do you know about, or what's your feeling about just down the road from there on Chippewa? What are you getting from the community? This name change thing's got half of, or more than half of people riled up.
I have not spoken to one person that believes that the name should be changed.
From Chippewa.
From Chippewa.
The Raiders thing, yeah, sure.
The Raiders that's a whole different topic. But to change the name, I just have not heard anybody say that it's a good idea, and they seem really hell bent on going down that road. Are they listening to the constituents? Are they listening to the people that voted for them? They just seem like they're hell bent on changing the name. And when they say they've come up with 5 options, I don't believe Chippewa is one of those options. But it's for some of us, like for me, there's a lot of history there. And you talk to former students and, you know, they just don't understand. Why would you erase history? You've got some Indigenous leaders in the city here that are saying, don't do it. Or they're saying there's nothing wrong with the name. So why go through that process? I'm sure they've got a lot of other more things on their table that are more have more priority than the name change at Chippewa, especially if people don't want it. What are you hearing?
Oh, the column I wrote in December saying it was a bad idea and they're going about it wrong. It stands, and I believe that if everybody understood the real reason why it was named Chippewa in the first place, because of the military connection, and that's why things, the creek and the street are named Chippewa, I think it would be easier to understand for people to be okay with it, but nobody's listening. The people that are driving this process are not accepting or listening to what people are trying to say. So,
I mean, you look at decision. I heard a couple of weeks ago that I heard that a Whitfield Wildcats banner, championship banner, is hanging at West Ferris High School in the gym. I don't know, maybe it's my age or something, or like the school spirit, like that just didn't happen back in the day. And some people say, well, times are different now, maybe. But, well, yeah, but I'm still not hearing anybody saying, well, why would they do that? Why would you not hang that banner at Chippewa? That's where the students went. Yeah, some of them probably did go to West Ferris, but again, if I'm going to West Ferris, if I'm a coach at West Ferris and I look up and I see a Whitfield banner there, it just doesn't sit well. It doesn't seem to sit well.
Once you close a school, you burn the banners, man, and you give them out and auction them off. They're not supposed to hang in another school where the students go. This consolidation thing's just messed up.
Well,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting that it's important, and people, they are standing up and saying what they think about it, and petitions and whatnot. It'd be very interesting to see where it goes, but I have zero hope that they're going to listen to common sense, to this woke sort of need to change things to appease people that are uncomfortable or upset for whatever reasons. Even if there's, I think we've gone down that road quite a bit in the last 10 years, and we're seeing that the result is that rather than dealing with the real issue, we're avoiding the issue. So if people are using Chippewa for racist reasons, for whatever, deal with the people doing that. Don't change the name. It's going to be kind of like whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
For the rest of our lives, every time people get upset, we got to change things. Yeah. So sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. I believe this is one of the times it doesn't make sense.
Well, I agree. I mean, and for me, the Indigenous leaders speaking out really, hit home for me.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to have been any consultation there. And at least they're not saying there was.
Well, I think what they had was they did have back during the consolidation and after that there was Indigenous representative on some of the discussions in committees and whatnot and the decisions, but it didn't necessarily mean it was the right representation, right? And or the ones in the community that are established and actually have the voice of others, right? Or expected to lead. I don't know. I haven't looked into the details of where they think they had Indigenous and representation and go in this direction. I know a friend of mine there, he went there and his son went there and they're not listening to him either. And he is a Chippewa Indian. So,
well, some of those board members are new.
Yeah.
And maybe they're into this now and saying they're just hell bent and saying this is what we're decided we were going to do and go ahead with it. But again, I can tell you from experience, sometimes you need to, if the outcry is loud enough, and it seems to be here, you need to listen.
Well, I'm sure if the
you mentioned you mentioned Tweedsmuir and that, and there was one situation where back in the day we were going to build houses there, and the blowback was so extreme that we did have to relook at it again. We canceled those plans, and quite frankly, I look back on it now, and I'm glad we did.
Yeah.
I mean, now you've got pickleball courts there, tennis courts. The kids are using the soccer fields. I mean, and now with West Ferris the arena coming down, man, that area, there's a lot of potential there for it to be. I hope there's a lot of neighborhood consultation there and feedback, and whatever's done there will be done based on all the feedback that they got from the people of West Ferris.
Mm-hmm. Or any Ferris, eh?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about the Northern Pines funding.
Yes, Northern Pines. Very happy to see last week the announcement of $3 million in additional annual funding for Northern Pines. Those dollars will go specifically to house the individuals. I mean, what's been created there is a mini mental health and addiction hospital. You've got 61 beds there now, and the third phase of that will be complete later on in the year. So now you've got the $3 million a year in additional funding to house them. The next step is now you need the wraparound services. So that's a different ministry. That's the Ministry of Health. So if you get them there and you're able to house them, you've got them there. They need the wraparound services in order to assist them with, whatever issues they have. And that was kind of the way it was created when we started it. And when you talk about transitional supportive housing, which back in 2019, all the professionals in the city were saying that's what's badly needed here. Well, now they've got 61 beds there, transitional supportive housing. But the last step in the whole process is wraparound services. So you're able to assist these individuals. I believe some of those health dollars are available within the community already. You look at if you've got a client at CMHA for example, that's they're working with a client. CMHA is working with a client. If that client is situated at Northern Pines, well, you go deal with them at Northern Pines. If they were, if they're rather than dealing with them at a coffee shop or whatever, you're able to deal with them there. So maybe some dollars can be reallocated, and I hope I don't get in any trouble at home by saying that.
Yeah, let's put that out on the table so people know your partner is involved.
Yes, my partner is Mary Davis. She's the CEO of CMHA, and I've learned over the last 3 years, I guess, that we've been together, 3+ years, I've learned so much about the mental health and addictions, certainly by being involved in it myself, but she's been my teacher. And it's frustrating to see sometimes what's happening, and the community safety and well-being plan was developed with feedback from all the stakeholders in the city. The main issue was the service network, which meaning the existing, they're great people, they're professionals, they do great work, but sometimes they work in silos and they're not able to get past that. That's the frustrating part. But I think if they put their minds together in terms of can we reallocate health dollars within our existing budgets to reallocate to Northern Pines, I think there's some potential there. I don't know how much. I don't know, but I do think they need to go through that exercise. And, if that doesn't happen, then, or maybe it happens, they're able to reallocate some dollars, but they need some more. That's when they can go to the Ministry of Health. But I think they need to look within the district first to see if they can reallocate some health dollars before they do anything else. That facility there is cutting edge in terms of if they're able to get the health dollars and fulfill the model the way it was planned. I think you've got something that's cutting edge there that you might not see elsewhere right now in the province. 61 beds. It's not quite the old psych hospital. The Northern Pines concept model has been, we've been working on that for 3 years now. And the province is heavily invested in that facility, right? They provided all the capital funds to get it built and get it renovated. Now they've provided $3 million in annual housing funding. So they're heavily invested in there. And as time goes on, it's not going to happen overnight, but one way or another, whether it's, the money is found locally or it's a combination of local and provincial assistance, I think one day, again, it's not going to happen overnight, but that facility will be up and running as a full-scale entity, transitional supportive housing, and which is housing, but you can't have them there without the wraparound services. And to me, those are two separate projects, Northern Pines and Lakeshore Drive.
Right. I always had an artisan here last week, Mark Anthony Carmichael, and we were talking about this because at one point he was he went through childhood trauma, became an addict, a criminal, defeated, homeless in the 90s, right? He got diagnosed with MS, and then things changed for his life. He ended up with people that were helping him out, and he started feeling like he was worth it again. So we talked about this, and specifically the need for these type of wraparound services and stabilization, housing, and help to get further along, all right? And the need for good counseling and mental health supports as well. So he said for sure when he was young, he had a good social worker that cared, and he had access to someone to really speak to. His whole life trajectory would have been different. So it's very important.
Connecting them to services, connecting them to individuals that they can learn or get to a point where they can trust them. My understanding, that's the biggest challenge. When you're a homeless individual, there's not a lot of trust there they don't trust systems, they don't trust, but if you're able to interact with this individual on a daily basis, repetition, you just gain their trust over time. The downtown ambassadors, these are mental health and addiction workers. That's what they've been able to do. And how are they doing? One by one, they're getting them off the street, one by one. But it takes a lot of time. There needs to be that kind of system within the city where you're able to interact with these individuals on a daily basis, whether it's the downtown ambassadors, whether it's at the gathering place, or whether it's some kind of center where they can go to get in out of the cold or stuff like that. There's got to be individuals in there that will look at assisting them, and this is where they gain the trust, and that's where they're going to finally say, "Yeah, I'm ready." But until they're ready, as we know, and this is the most frustrating part of the whole thing, is they got to be able to do it on their own. and make that decision.
Yep.
And until they do, all you can do is keep at them every day. See if you can get in there, meet with them, interact with them on a daily basis. My understanding, what I've learned, is that's how you gain success and get them in off the street.
Interesting. I guess that's how you go about recruiting people to run for council too, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Once the election over, you never hear from them again.
Yeah, exactly.
What else do you want to talk about there? You've seen you got so much time on your hands.
I don't know. We've talked about. I think we've talked about the topics that I had kind of highlighted, for lack of a better word. But
what do you like about these type of interviews? Because I'm still trying to talk you into hosting your own show because I think you do a really good job. I'd like to see you host something similar to Municipal Matters, and bring on guests and look at different issues once a week or so. And are you any closer to jumping in with both feet?
I enjoy this format, this back and forth like this. I've said this to you before. I mean, I think any interview I've done with you is I feel comfortable, I feel relaxed. But the thing for me is I'm talking about stuff that I know something about, or I've experienced, or I've got an opinion on, or whatever. As you've come, as you've known me a long time, I have no problem expressing my opinion. But that's kind of where I think why I'm enjoying it is the format itself, this back and forth like this, but also, we're talking about things that I'm familiar with. So
I don't know. Like, you would fill a void, which is you're unelected. Potentially, you may run again. Who knows? But you got experience, you got background, and you can approach things when you're not in an official capacity different than when you approach things as an elected or somebody actively seeking election, right? So I don't know. Like I got some other ideas for myself, and I do this all the time. I pick an issue here and there, and I try to delve into it a little bit, find somebody that knows something about it, but I'm hit and miss. But focusing just on municipal matters, I can imagine that there's people that just don't understand, and they're frustrated with the bureaucracy, the red tape, and they don't know the process like you do. And you could probably have insights on how to help people through the process when they have issues. Same for the developers and builders and whatnot. New construction companies trying to figure out how to, get jobs off the city and stuff like that. Somebody's going to play that role. I think you could do it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess an example was the tendering of community recreation center, right? Yeah. When there's some chirping about what's going on. It's been 2 months, and is a project cratered or whatever. When I read it, it's like, well, no, they're preparing the tender documents. They didn't start preparing the tender documents until council gave the approval to go ahead with it. And yeah, that wasn't communicated like that, but I guess now that I've maybe shone some light on it, I don't know if I'm hoping I did.
No, that's a good example of explaining process, right? Yeah. On an ongoing issue that people are talking about. So,
and instead of chirping about it, hopefully people will understand that. Well, yeah, that makes sense. Why would they spend hours and hours and hours and hours of putting together all these documents that are so complicated, and you got to triple, quadruple check everything? Why would they go through that process if at the end of the day council says, no, we're not going to do it? I mean, it's just a waste of time, waste taxpayer dollar. You're paying staff to do all that work. So,
yeah, no, it's that would help.
I'm intrigued by the 2 days between. How did you say it? Between
2 days.
Between 2 days.
Well, there's a famous interview comedy thing with. Called Between Two Ferns. Have you ever seen that?
Between Two Ferns?
Yeah.
Is this like Fernwood Tonight?
No, what was that? The actor that was on Vegas Vacation. What was it?
Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, Zelf. Zach
Galifianakis.
Galifianakis, whatever.
It's not that.
Just call him Zach.
Anyways, he's a funny guy. He's an actor. What was that movie he was on?
Hangover.
The Hangover.
Oh, yes.
Right. So the guy with the beard that's kind of
Yes.
nerdy. Anyway, so he gets guests, and his show's called Between Two Ferns, and he basically has two potted ferns on both sides of the chairs, right? And then it's just hilarious. What he does is that he asks the most stupid or funny type questions, but with serious face, right? It's a comedic exercise. But
Yeah.
Between 2 days, between two ferns.
Well, it's certainly something, like I said, I'm comfortable in this format. And
Who would you have on for your first guest?
I haven't even thought that far yet. A lot of options.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot of options. Whether they'd be willing to come on is another matter, but
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
well, between two Daves, they might feel a little bit more like it's I'm right in the middle here and I'm taking shots from both sides. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, no, it's you'd have to set it up so that people would feel like they're not going to get ambushed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I'm not. That's not something I would ever really want to do, anyways. I'm not.
Yeah.
That's not the way I operate.
Maybe it'd be a show where you pick one of the Daves to be the host.
Flip a coin, maybe.
One of the days between two of them.
Yeah. No, like I said, I'm enjoying it. This is this is the second one we've done, and now, and
Nice room.
yeah, and if like I said, I enjoy doing it.
Cool. Well, we cover a lot of ground every time we talk, so that's pretty cool. I can't think of another thing to ask you right now, other than how much money do you have on the Leafs?
I have $100 on the Leafs with my good friend Larry Tugas.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and we'll see what happens there.
Who's he cheering for?
Well, he put his money on Tampa. Like we bet on the Tampa Toronto series, and he put his money on Tampa. He's a Montreal Canadiens fan, so he's definitely not a Toronto Maple Leaf fan.
Ah,
Yes.
he's an anti-Toronto.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I'm a diehard Leaf fan. But
Got any love for the Oilers, or
what's that?
got any love for the Oilers?
Well, based on what they did last night, they're behind the eight ball already.
Yeah.
So they never seem to be able to pull it off. They've got such a good team, the Oilers, but something seems to always happen to them, kind of just like the Leafs, right? But if the Leafs don't get out of the first round this year, I don't know.
What's it different than any other year?
Well, it's got to be different this year, or else they're going to have to look at doing something. But I like the team. I like the additions that they brought in at the trade deadline.
Certainly an entertaining team.
Sorry?
An entertaining team.
Very entertaining.
Yeah.
Very entertaining. If they can convince Nylander to give it for 60 minutes whenever he's on the ice, and
Isn't he an extra special surprise this year, right?
Yeah, not take a night off.
I think people had him written off, but I like his play. Yeah.
The last few games there, he kind of reverted back to his old ways, but for the most part, you're right. This year, Nylander has really come through, and you can see it in his stats, obviously.
Actually, the big question mark, I guess, is our goalie situation. Eh?
Yes, so hopefully Samsonov is able to.
I loved the way he played the last, through March and February.
I think he's definitely the better goalie, and they're going to go with him, and hopefully they don't have to make any changes. It'll be up to him how he performs, right? So
it's all going to come down to injuries.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
As long as we don't lose our captain.
Yeah,
isn't he having a great year this year too? Eh?
Yeah, he's got his 80 plus points thereabouts. I mean, kind of what you expect from Tavares, but Matthews and Marner, they're the ones. It's great what they do in the regular season, but they got to be able to transfer that into the playoffs. And if they do that, and the Tavares and Nylander and do what they do, I think they got a good shot at against Tampa.
What is it with these people that like the Habs? Like, is it mental health issues or what?
I don't know. Maybe they're suckers for punishment. I don't know. Just like Leaf fans are.
I liked it last month there. I have two very vocal Hab fans as friends, and I haven't heard a peep from them.
Yeah. Well, they're concentrating now on getting the Connor Bedard. They want to get the number 1 pick now.
Yeah, well, that's...
Montreal
good
doesn't.
for them.
Canadians don't have a very good history with recent number 1 picks, so
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
All right, well, let's wrap it up there. I know Benny's got some stuff to do. Yeah, and it was good talk.
Yep, I enjoy it as always.
We'll do it again there before my birthday.
And when's that?
June 14th. I turned 58.
Oh boy,
Yeah, I'm catching up on you.
You're catching up. Hopefully, you never catch up on me. I mean,
Well, if I ever catch you, that means you died, right?
yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm saying. Hopefully, you never catch up to me.
Cool.
Enjoyed this very
enough.
much. Thanks, and look forward to the next one.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.